What's up? Just tapping in, just to share some inspiration that was on my heart today. And I think there's something that says that if you don't have something good to say, don't say anything. But how would you know if you have something good? Is that if you're inspired and you don't mean any harm by what you're saying or doing, and you're yet inspired to do so, in something that moves you or moves you despite yourself or moves you to move yourself, that's the best way to impact others, and that's the best way to impact yourself. And I just want to say salute and solidarity to all people out there on any side of any struggle, inside any side of any family, any side of any talent, because talent is a challenge. Or there may not actually be a deeper challenge than talent. Like you, and it's not a it's not a it's not I think that talent is not a winner take all thing. Like we in according to Osho, we are in a very competitive. Osho was he was a brilliant man. He's a man from India, and then on top of that, he was a born Muni. And when I say the word Muni, according to Arthur Avalon in India, it simply refers to someone that thinks for themselves, that's a critical thinker, but that's also an enlightened thinker, a creative thinker, an original thinker. Is someone that thinks for themselves. So you may likely be or likely know or likely be inspired by a Mooney, and I think we have something of all people in us. If you can look at someone and you can see the greatness in that person, or you can see that person's struggle, that's also you. So what who are you? Who like I think it's really cool. There's a saying called "Know Thyself," but I heard that saying said in I was watching. So there's a video that occurs on the internet right now. It's on. Sometimes I like to view martial content. I have so for about at least let's see. Well, I grew up in New Mexico. Right now I'm near a picture of a football. There's like a football mural behind me. It's actually really beautiful here. There's like some men there, some young men there. These are like I would imagine like high school, college level, and so I grew up in I was born in the Twin Cities. I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, on a blizzard. On my birthday falls on can be close to Thanksgiving. My birthday falls on Thanksgiving, some years, but it's not always. It doesn't always occur on Thanksgiving, and it didn't the year I was born. But and also my name means to give thanks in my dad's language, and to be grateful, and thereby my name is actually an androgynous name in the culture I come from. It can be applied to a boy or a girl. And my best friend in middle school or late elementary, it would have been middle school in the Southwest, but in the North, it's still elementary, sixth grade. He was like, he saw my name like sometimes you go to the school before the year start and you see who your desk mate's gonna be. And my friend, he was a real play. Not I won't say playboy. That's egregious for a child because we had children, but he was a real um, imminent born very attractive like person, but real attractive, someone that's attractive like him are attractive to both males and females because he was just a beautiful person, not in a sexual way in itself, just a beautiful person, so beautiful that he wasn't impressed by beautiful things in people. That's one really cool thing about my homie. I won't blast his name out loud, but he's named after a type of very healthy food. And since the first time I met him, he wasn't impressed with himself for being attracted to people, and he was into things like wrestling. He was into that mean ass shit, and like I remember like we became really good friends, and like we got into a snowball fight. I was new to the north, so snow was new. I was born here, but when I got back here, snow was new to me. Skating was new to me, like on like rings, and he got me. I became something like I became a skater hanging out with him, but we just had a genuine friendship. But I remember we were throwing snowballs one time, and like one of the two of those snowballs landed, and it got real between us. But he wasn't trying to hurt me. He's the kind of person where like he wasn't trying to hurt you. He was never trying to hurt anyone or anything. But he would just go there if it felt like if we got to like fighting, like not fighting, but like if a snowball fight got real, he would go there. But just based off the energy, like fuck me, no fuck you, no, like we're best friends. we're at this elementary school where we grew, where we both lived closer, and like in the winter season, the holiday season, we'd be there. We'd be the only ones at the park. We're having fun. I don't remember what the hell we were doing. We were trying to get to some girl's house, I think, because there's some pretty girls that live there, and we got into a snowball fight. Just me and him, and like, fuck me, no fuck you, no fuck. Okay, it's cool. So it wasn't personal, but he wasn't impressed with like he actually he wasn't he didn't go the other way, but he wasn't impressed with girls for being girls. He wasn't impressed with girls for being pretty. He wasn't impressed for guys for being guys. He wasn't impressed for guys for being tough. He was just off the principle for him. Like he's like actually kind of a very principled person that way. But only reason I say that is because when he saw my name the first day, he's like, "Oh damn, here we go, man! I got to sit next to a girl this whole time." And then when we went to like, I excelled at sports that year. I was called the strongest basketball player by the other main basketball players there. And then we would go on. It's kind of interesting, like just because you're great in sports or in anything one year in school, it doesn't mean that you're the king of the mountain. You can fall off. So like some of my friends that called me the strongest basketball player then, and I could get over on them when we first met. I became more of a skater, and I fell off a little bit, and then I came back to it. But I was never quite in my. I was never actually my full stride, the same way as when I began. Cause it changed my mental attitude, but then I could get very streaky and I could get hot because all those hours that I put in practicing, sometimes they can engage if you have the right circumstance. And for me, that would be like when my mom would be present. I don't know what it is, but the love of your mom, it's a very subtle. Sometimes you don't appreciate how subtle the influence in the love of your mother is. And I want to shout out mothers with that because you see your mother do things for you. You can feel some of I think of a child's love for their mother is that they can actually is actually power because what do boys like? What do children like? But what do people like? People like power. But also people like and love nothing more than their mother. That's also because your mother is very powerful. You're in school. You got all these teachers, all these obligations, all these things you don't want to be in school about, and then there go your mom come in there just for her to walk into school or for her to take you away from school to go to a doctor's appointment or go to anything that you, or heaven forbid, you got to go to like a family vacation and your mom couldn't take you out of school because she wasn't going to waste the whole day, but she's going to let you go to half of the day before your trip, then come get you like that. That's actually near, that might be the closest thing feeling to nirvana on earth. I would say that because when love extricate you, when you like when soldiers are in a fight and then a helicopter come get them, they would call that extract, but it's actually extricate. When love extricates you from the duties, rigors, and stress and turmoil of day-to-day living and rigors of labor, even that of school for a child, which is heaven. I want to say one more thing about child labor with this in this video. That's the closest to that we get, I think, to enlightenment. So I really love Kurt Cobain and I rock with Kurt Cobain. He's a lot. He's my inspiration. He informed much of my life. I loved Teen Spirit when I first heard that song as a child, but then I rediscovered him when I was I've been a non-traditional student about 25 years 25 years old in college, and then about a year or two after that, I got into a little bit of financial difficulty, and I also had a cool job like at a sandwich shop, a famous sandwich shop that'd be everywhere. I just not gonna say the name. And that's one of the cool things about that shop is that they have some of the best playlists. I'd say this sandwich shop, you may easily be able to estimate if you're from America which one I'm talking about. They have the best playlists. They really have outstanding playlists. I'm not sure if they just have playlists or great radio stations. Back then, this would have been like 2011 or 12, and I would just that whole time like I wasn't great at making sandwiches back then. I actually didn't, it takes a certain amount of confidence to make sandwiches. That's a really actually it's a beautiful thing if you see people that can make sandwiches well. It's hard to explain how difficult and also how beautiful it is when people are strong with sandwiches. But you have to have confidence to do that, and I didn't quite have that much confidence back then. Or but I would be a strong driver, and then when I was in the store, I could just had a I didn't I had to work it. So I had more than I had talent for sandwiches or cleaning or even driving the vehicle. Was actually I just had a work ethic since I was little, so I couldn't be. I felt wrong at a job back in the day, like 2000. My first job started in 1999, and then by like 2012 or so, back then jobs were a lot less of paying, and people had like I think people had less gall around jobs. Like most people rock with their jobs now, but there's so much opportunity and cool things where it's like, yeah, this job is all right, but I could also do this and that. But back then, I don't think I didn't have that attitude, so I couldn't be standing around a job. So my work ethic was just don't stand still. So I do like more and more and more cleaning. But that whole time I'd always take breaks and just write down all these songs that would come on there, and most of them were like rock leaning and stuff like that. So as I was coming out of that, then about a couple years later, I worked a lot of delivery, first sandwiches, then pizza for a couple years. Create If you imagine how much work volume that was, working full time at delivery at pizza shops, where you have to at a sandwich shop you might be able to skate by. Yeah, man, that's just a driver, man. He sucks at sandwiches. Give him the sandwiches and keep the money coming. Let him. We'll make the sandwiches like the grown folks, and we'll let him have fun in his car and bring us on back the money. Good to go like that. But not so at a pizza shop, because a pizza shop is more like a ship. It's like it's less dialed in than a sandwich shop, because some of the rigors of the way that the pizza and the sandwich making at a pizza shop go. So it's all hands on deck all the time at a pizza shop. The only difference would be, okay, you actually do suck at cleaning down the make line at night, and you're a little bit better at dishes. So you may get to do the dishes instead of the make line, because in the interest of time, we got to get the hell out of here. But otherwise, you would also be doing that too. So I just got a lot rock leaning. I got my taste for rock back at that time, because I had been more on the alternative side when I had my skater phase, and then I was nothing but hip hop. But then as a man, I got back on the rock leading side. I never did love rock, but I got more of it, and then I got reintroduced to Kurt Cobain in that phase. And one thing I really love about Kurt Cobain is that if he was the one thing about him. I think the people that really inspire you, it's because actually they're also you, because we're all people, and what we appreciate in another person is also us. And what I want to say is, who you really are. Like there's this saying, to know thyself. And uh, so with the uh, so with Kurt Cobain, I just like that he was very non-pretentious. One thing that I can appreciate. I went down I went down rabbit holes of interviews with Nirvana and then later the Chili Peppers. But with Nirvana, I watched all them back catalog interviews where they were trying to get a read on Kurt Cobain and Nirvana the same way that social media would have showed. That I think a lot of us now, we're actually more comfortable in one. A lot of people talk about like the dark parts about social media, and like what it does to attention span and social reality. But to every dark there's a light. One of the light parts about social media and also the internet age is that the internet age, it gave us autonomy in that we became more and more of able to be interested in what we're interested in and make decisions and curate lifestyles anonymously. So is the feeling, the on-demand surfing the web. So we all became surfers. You could say that with the internet, everybody became more of a surfer with the internet. But then also at the same time, we lost. It would feel like we became more of anonymous online, but actually likely the opposite happened. We became more public in all things. But uh, so you could say the internet, it is kind of like a trick, in that it tricks you to think that you're being anonymous, but then it get to see the real you when you think because like you're always being observed at all times. So like it's kind of like some right now some young people just walk by. If you get some children thinking that they're away from the earshot of adults, that might be a good way to find out like if some kid you thought that they might have done something they weren't supposed to do. Get them thinking that they're alone, and then they start getting comfortable, and you see what they're really just did or what they're really about, and not in an egregious way, but it brings out somebody's true color when they think that they're not being observed. But we're always being observed. Like even before the internet in the '80s, they said that back in the day, Russia was the walls had ears in Russia, in Soviet Russia, like after the Stalin regime and some of the like the realities of communism, and then also the espionage apparatus of that time and whatnot. But if Soviet Russia if the walls had eyes and ears in Soviet Russia, how much more now? So for the whole world, including Russia too. But all I'm saying is that we became. I think that with the so like if you remember, I was old enough to remember the beginning of reality television. I think that actually some of social media, the lifestyles, but also like it came from reality television, because reality television took a colonized television in the 90s, like the early to mid 90s and hereafter. But then that's on like the entertainment side, the Hollywood side. But then people are like, nah, man, we like that real shit. We like that. Wait, nah. F these celebrities, man. I want to know what my homie in school is about. Like, what's that about? So life became more like a reality show. But if you grew up in the 90s thinking that your bedroom was yours, your area was yours, your friends were yours, Now everybody knows, everybody's friends, whatnot. But also some of them reality shows is like, damn, how could you live in a reality show where there's cameras everywhere? You got to deal with people that you got to deal with people. You got to deal with girls, boys, girls. Like when you're young, that's what I'm thinking as a kid. But then as a man, you got to deal with men, women. All y'all are together. All y'all see who each other's dating. All y'all can take each other's dates right off each other's hands and stuff like that. All y'all can get each other kicked out. All y'all can get to fighting. That's like life now with social media. But back then it was like, damn man, them people are balls. They got cojones, man. Up at, like I remember the first. If you remember the first reality television show, it was like the first real. It was on MTV, I think. So you could say MTV colonized the world. It was not only first with music, but then with reality television, and it was like the first real world episode. I can't remember this brother's name. He was an African American brother. He had like rich complexion and he had a bald head, I think, and he was ratchet on that show, man. But he wasn't shy about it. He was him, man. He's like, hey, man, I'm a young man. This is the '90s, man. I'm gonna do my damn thing, man. I don't care who's in this house too, man. Oh, but she's cool. I'll date her too. Oh, but she ain't cool no more. Fuck you. I'm over here now. And this is my date tonight, man. Fuck you too, man. You chill over there while I'm with my date, man. Shit. And then like he was so ratchet and like he was such a loose cannon ratchet, but that was just the realest shit, man. He was living his life. It don't matter if the whole world watching MTV, but yeah, we also gotta spin this and make it entertainment so we can get paid to be here. So I'm cool with that too, man. Whatever, man. But that's actually how like life is now, and I don't think that's all the way a bad thing because we're now more confident like that. It's like yeah, damn it, everywhere you go, there gotta be a camera there. There gotta be public there. So we're more of like public. At least for me, having gone through that. But with Kurt Cobain, they were trying to get onto that. So it's like in them early like interviews of the early '90s, that I think Real World they hadn't popped off before Nirvana popped off and was popping like that. So like like so I remember there was one episode of Kurt Cobain where he was in my hood. He was in like Minnesota at that time for some reason, and they were interviewing him, and he's like he was not a fan of interviews and stuff like that because I think that a lot of people like him that are great, they can you want traction, but then you find out that you don't know what you got till it's gone. So you're actually anonymity and privacy. It matters more on the creative side too, but on the personal side. So he wasn't with pretension in the first place. He wasn't with fanfare. I don't know how he, because I know he couldn't stand pop. One thing I know is he could not stand pop music, but I don't know how that is for a musician because you think that musicians want the traction and the pull like that and to land their music like that. But I'm not saying what he did or didn't want, but I just know that he didn't like to be pretentious for anything, and but he also like he wasn't a fan of like interviews and stuff like that. But when they got him on a couple years later after reality television, I think had began, they were he was on the Unplugged of MTV, and just the way he had attired himself, he was he actually looked like somebody living in with their in their. I don't want to no shots at the great Kurt Cobain in any way, but he looked like Devil's Main Care. Like yeah, man, I just got back from my mom's house and stuff like that. But now all y'all are my jock and stuff like that, and I'm about to play this show, and it's about to rock the world, and we're probably only gonna get peanuts, relatively speaking, for what we're about to rock. But if I can just get a break, if y'all can give me a break to smoke this cigarette real quick, and then he's like swiveling in his chair and stuff like that, that's who Kurt Cobain is. But he really inspired me a lot as the Devil's Main Care thing, the actual brilliance within brilliance within or he was the brilliance of an ordinary person. I think that's actually still why on a finer level, I think that's why he's so influential and powerful to this day, if not more this day than then, because social media and music has a broader reach and more of on-demand selection than it did back then. Because you used to have to wait for the fly stuff to come on and pop off, but now you can go straight to that Kurt Cobain shit if you want, and that's where people go. Because if you look at some of the Nirvana things like videos, like they got billions of views, millions of comments, millions of likes, tens of millions of likes and comments, multiple tens of millions of likes and comments on top of the billions of views. Nirvana like that. But so but so I was so where I'm from, like I rock with basketball, and then I grew up. So I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, on a blizzard. The car broke down on our way home because we were from Minneapolis. I'm from a neighborhood that's it's famous for it's an African American, European American, Native American, American American. I'm not saying Native American aren't American American. That's American American, but is like one of the Twin Cities is it's a multicultural. Some of your salient multicultural cities in North America, not all of which, not the least of which, but some of the salient of which would be like New York City, probably is the biggest. It's called the melting pot. Then Vancouver would be. I'm not saying I can't speak specific authoritatively, but in my experience, and according to my dad's testimony, who's traveled a lot, you have New York City, Vancouver, then also the Twin Cities, Minnesota is on par with that. It's not to the same scale as Vancouver or New York City, but it's on par with that. But then within the Twin Cities, the area like around the University of Minnesota, like Dinkytown and Cedar Riverside, those have the Cedar Riverside has a formidable reputation, but also it's just a beautiful area. A lot of culture. It's almost like it's like you can really appreciate and taste world culture there when you go to Cedar Riverside / Dinkytown, and that's where I grew up as a boy. And like my best friend next door, you can get anything there. Like so, there my best friends, my first friends, not my first friends came from like my daycare and stuff like that, and they would have been just a sample of this area. I had your white American friends, African American friends, and then later on I had a lot of Native American friends. But my best friend as a child were two African American children, and their dad was a black biker, and so I grew up around bikers like that, around him and them, and around some of that biker. And so I learned how to ride a bicycle by the way I learned how to get on two wheels by a combination of my best friend and his sister, who were the children of a biker, and then my best friend later, who became my best friend later, but then was just a family friend, who was from Africa, but he was very talented in he was visually deprived, but he was that enhanced somehow his hearing and also his actual physical aptitude. So he was very strong physically, and he could do things in terms of balance. Like he could bunny like right now you got some vases around by here that are about like 3.5, 4 feet tall. He damn near the smaller of which like I'm just gonna show right there. The smaller which there he could clear that damn thing on a trick bike, not like them heavy like them trick bikes for like DMX bikes I think they're called. He could clear that damn thing as I bet you he could clear that damn thing if he felt like it, he'll clear that damn thing, just jump over the damn thing like that on a bike for no damn reason like that. Crazy shit like that, or like better yet, like you have like so you got one, two, so there goes some tiles. They're about like that far apart. If you stack about a crate of about one, two, three, four, maybe five of them, he'll clear that thing on a bike like that. And that's where I learned how to ride a bike. But then when I got to so I got my training like that, and my parents had brought me to St. Paul to be born at a hospital, but I otherwise grew up in Minneapolis until elementary, and then I went out to New Mexico. But at that time in the '90s, basketball was a movement in America, but also New Mexico. It's something about New Mexico. It'll bring out the best fitness in a person. Like I wanted to say that too. Like some people would say that a lot of marathon runners, people that have talent in running, they'll specifically go to where I'm from, Albuquerque, to train at that altitude so that they can outlast people. But what I want to say is that what's more let me say hi. I got Lindsay Perry. Hi Lindsay. I got Jose de Jesus Luna Guzman. Hi Jose. And I got Jaron D Sunik. What's up, Jaron? In New Mexico, basketball was big, but also just athleticism was big, and it's a good place to. It'll somehow that atmosphere. It'll bring out your what you can do physically. So some people would think about taking a trip like to do different things as a tourist, but if you wanted to get fit, I would bet someone. Some people take trips like as long as 3 weeks or something like that. If you wanted to get fit from nothing, because like I've got a lot more fit in the last year. I've got a lot more fit in the last year, but I kicked that off in New Mexico. I was out there last year, and I just went to a park, and I started working. I started training again, and I could do more than I thought I could. And if you've ever been fit in your life, if you've ever been sincerely fit in your life, that I had a family friend, a Native American brother, a Seminole, that was my friend's dad, and he did stuff with us, and he was also sports medicine. and he said like if you can run if you've ever in your life been fit enough to run a marathon, you likely are in a strong position to withstand a lot of some of the like in the latter stages of your life. You're in a better position to age and face things like heart disease and different osteoporosis. If you've ever been fit enough to run a marathon, that actual fitness, it'll serve you, and it can be just like you can relapse. Like a lot of people talk about negative things that relapse because there's money to be made for that. There's not as much money to be made for you being empowered. So like I made a video yesterday, and I recapitulated a couple statements that I made the day before, and both those videos failed to upload. And I was speaking from personal testimony about empowerment as healing, true healing and enjoyment of life, past and beyond a mental health diagnosis and/or a fraudulent and/or misdiagnosis. Where a lot of times, there are oversights. I was watching something about consumer protection today. There are oversights and protections from different. Any profession can injure other people. Plumbers can be sued. Doctors can be sued. Any professional role, because part of being a professional is when someone say, oh, this one's a professional. Everyone in life is a professional. You're a professional about being yourself, and there's as much skill in being you and consequence in being you. But something that would make someone a professional is the liability of it. So like a CDL, a commercial driver, the reason you're a professional CDL is because that vehicle is so big that it can do a lot of damage, and that it doesn't necessarily take a lot more skill to drive a CDL than another vehicle, because it's just a change in perspective and a different range of difficulty and skill. But it's more of liability. So part of you getting to wear that professional title hat is actually the liability. So the bankability of it, yeah, you see that. Hey man, oh, you're a CDL. Oh, come over here, man. We'll hire you in 5 minutes, man. And also here go $30 an hour to go with it. Ha ha. You already done your thing over there. Man, we just got to take one ride with you, see, make sure you're good to go, and then we're gonna cut you to the races like that because we already know what you're doing. No, they can appreciate that you know what you're doing, but they're not responsible for retraining you. They're not going to waste that money, and you're already on paper. You're good enough to go. You prove yourself enough that you can take this liability, but it's still your liability to take. So the downside, the dark side of things that would call you a professional or compensate you more is that there's a lot of liability when shit go bad, and it can go bad, heaven forbid, in anything. But a CDO and or a company can be sued, but doctors, they can be sued if they mess up bad enough in front of the wrong person. But a subtle thing is that you don't see them. Is it possible that a man, a human being, can make a mistake about appraising the mindset or the agency or just the value of another human being with the mental health diagnosis / professional opinion that's not scientifically verified? And is there recourse to that? Can that be addressed? Is there recourse to that? Is there compensation for that? Hell no. Like someone like me, hell no. The most I could ever get is just the insight I'd get and maybe traction to speak my truth like that. But that's kind of video that will get that content. It can't be sustained because it's probably a conflict of interest. And I know people got mouths to feed. But what I'm saying is that I was doing a testimony about what I think it means to actually heal from a mental health diagnosis or lack and so I'm gonna recapitulate that. But I had I went to Albuquerque, and it was like that that Albuquerque just has like a fighting culture and a sport culture, but it's like a little bit of a tougher culture. Like some people, so you have the United States, you have the East Coast of the United States, you have Central United States, and then you have the Western United States. But those are actually really like three countries there. So political borders are arbitrary, but as the land and as the culture goes, you could appreciably say that you wouldn't say Central America, you'd say the Midwestern America. So the East Coast, the Eastern Seaboard, all the way to like maybe like Ohio and parts of Tennessee, that's the eastern flank. Then you have the Midwest and the western states, but some could maybe reason that the southern flank or the far north would be distinct. But and also the southern United States is very coastal, like a port. So these port cities, they have a different culture and reality than center. But I visited someone in California recently, and someone there was like, someone said, "What's up from Russia? Salute Russia. Annexa Russia. Salute Russia. I was just thinking about. I'm referencing Russia right now. This is actually interesting. Someone said hello from Russia, and I'm making a point about Russia right now. So uh, um, but so actually the whole Western United States, according to a brother I met in California from Mexico, is actually Mexico. So your California, Utah, all the way up to Utah, damn near probably Montana, Utah, New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, California. That's New Mexico. That's a unique land country in terms of the actual geography, the realities of the geography. Then the economics that would ensue from that, and then the cultures that would influx there based on the history of that land, and then the broader Americas and what's viable there culturally and personally, professionally. That's actually Mexico, and so too the center of the United States is different. But in Mexico, that is where I grew up, New Mexico, California, Arizona, Mexico itself now. That's a unique culture, and there's a lot to do about, like, I'm not saying bravado in a false way, but it's a very respectful culture, but also a very formidable culture. So I grew up around that in New Mexico. But all I meant to say is that I've always been interested as an adult in like martial things, like mixed martial arts. I got interested that in like 2012, and not necessarily interested in it, but like fascinated with it. And if you can, but it's jarring, like because I didn't grow up seeing that. None of us in America grew up with MMA, because that occurred in the late '90s, but it got popularized like in 2010 and beyond, because that would have been like a very niche connoisseur thing, the people that would be interested in that and that could stomach that kind of violence. But then the first time you see MMA, I would imagine for anyone, even now, it's like, damn, like, ooh, you can barely watch that. But then after a while, you're like, oh wait, that's that. You can see the physics of it first. You can see the limitations of it, the dangers of it, and then you can see the brilliance and the art in it. And I could see that since about the time of 2012. So I still watch that stuff. But the only reason I mention that is that there's actually something. I think everyone in their life has touched upon this before, but I was watching a content yesterday about there's something from Russia of fighting art, for lack of a better word. It's art par excellence, but it's deeper than art. It's life and the human body, and it's the rigors of life. Anything that a person would do, any kind of work, any circumstance, up to and including the kind of history that Russia and the whole world has, it can be sustained by something known as a systema. That's that's it's the closest thing I can reckon to it would be Tai Chi. But the difference between Tai Chi and systema is that sometimes I was doing that before coming across that video. I was actually replicating some of that stuff in my calisthenic workouts and in my stretching of moving my body. When I do that, sometimes people will critique you like, "Hey man, I saw you doing this and that, but actually I used to study Tai Chi, and when we study Tai Chi, you actually want to do your hands like this, and then this means this, and it's pulling you like this, and so you want all your motions like this and like that." That's actually formalizing it. It's kind of that's you may not see the actual entitlement of that and the chauvinism of that is that you have a body. You may use your body in any way you want. We're at a homeless shelter, open air homeless shelter with time on our hands. There's nothing barring you from just standing still and rotating your body in very subtle ways as it's feasible and as it's healthy to do. I did get flack from that by the staff there, and then the highest ranking staff gave me a permission because she was a fitness person herself. She's like, oh, you can do that. But then even once I got the clearance from people were getting mad at me for being all the way out the way and doing postures, for lack of a better word, on the ground in one position without interfering with anyone. Hey, you can't do that. Yeah, I know you're you, but you don't belong to you. You don't belong here. You could that's the ground right there. That's asphalt right there. That's dirty right there. You could get dirt on your hands doing that. You can't do that, sir. Then once I got the final authority from the highest up ranking person, I didn't know her name. I just knew she was blonde. Then one of the other staff was like, "Hey man, you can't do that." I'm like, "Oh no, I got permission from the top for this." She's like, "Who did?" I was like, "You know the lady with the blonde hair?" Oh, okay, yeah, the lady. Okay, so she fell back. But then after I got that, so you have the official ranking, you have the official power structure, chain of command in anywhere. Then you also have the de facto chain of command, which are different degrees of recognized leadership that can function in different ways than what their title is, or have different pull than exactly what the title says, and or veteran patrons and or people with any kind of disposition or orientation in this life that would give them a different degree of power or a viable power with other people to organize within that structure and actually pull weight. So yes, you got permission to exercise over there, but that doesn't sit well with the person over there that's been sitting in that same chair for 5 years and the pull that they have, and they can make it difficult for you. They may tolerate that, but that you're now bad with them, they can make it difficult with you over here for something stupid, and you get in the same trouble over there for something as stupid as what you got permission to do there. But then even if that's clear, good to go like that, you're just doing motions. Hey man, I just want to let you know I used to do Tai Chi, and what you actually want to do is this and this and this and that. So they just formalized it, but also, so I'm saying that I'm not taking shots at Tai Chi, but I'm talking that to label something, to name something, anything, and then formalize that and indoctrinate that, but also limit other people, even if it's just their confidence by doing that. That's arbitrary and limiting. But the thing of Systema is just no rules. You can say what would Systema be for me watching that video is just calmness, flowingness, and spontaneity right there. Can you contend with that, with somebody that is disciplined with that, but also is curating insights with that of their own experience and maybe sharing with other people in good standing reciprocity without entitlement and without a need to be proper about anything other than what's effective? That's also the best way to go about music. That's the same actual approach that I take to musical harmony, and that is viable with human musical harmony. I would be one to say that if you took that approach, what I just said there, as your ear goes with an instrument, you could confound best and outdo, not outdo, but you could outplease yourself and maybe also others with that approach to music harmony prior to, within, and beyond what's formalized of music. So that's just a perfect example. Music by ear versus formal music. Motion by authority and by authority now, because yoga and Tai Chi, I think they began like that, and they truly are like that. Also, it's synonymous there. But as things become formalized, and there's rank with that, and favors and honors that go with that, because in another example, in that system, there's no belt and there's no glory to be had. Just it itself is the outcome, and you're not done with it at any point. But the only reason I said that is because I there's a famous saying to know thyself. I think that's credited with being a Greek a Greek slogan, but it can be said in Russian, know thyself, and it sounds beautiful. The Russian version of know thyself, it sounds very eloquent and profound, and they said that in that video called Systema. If you just look up system with the A at the end, Systema, that's what that video is. And I think you can do the same thing with your mind. You can have that approach to your mind. But the thing, I wanted to talk about something a little bit different today that was on my heart, but I wanted to land that. But the main thing that failed to upload, and I'm not going to press it more on this platform, but the main thing that failed to upload is that I think that what constitutes a deprivation in mental health at all, but also mental health, because all things are unified, for lack of a better word. The word unity is actually a little bit redundant, because it takes diversity to have a sense of unity, but if there's diversity, it's not unity as we're taught unity, but that actually is truly what the universe is that it's both heterogeneous, according to Arthur Avalon, and homogeneous at once. That's the viability of it. So it's both different, and it's sameness within difference and difference within sameness, and then complete difference and complete sameness that makes life viable like that and profound like that is why you can't corner any skill set, you can't corner any person, you can't corner history, you can't corner science, you can't corner anything, because try as you may, we're both heterogeneous and homogeneous. That is transcendent right there. So dialectics is to have two things that are different, that are valuable, that are completely juxtapose different things, and then find truth in there, or be able to respect them as to hold different ideas at the same point, at the same time, and that they both be true enough while contradicting one another. That is what it is to be brilliant and to think brilliant, but also that is what it is to respect. A lot of people would say respect knowledge, we have to respect learning. Most people wouldn't combat to respect learning as a value. However, there's no end to learning, and there may be no completion to learning. Kind of like you have this galaxy over here that's completely separated. It's a black hole. You have our galaxy that's currently viable, although some say we're also in a black hole. how do you reconcile the two? They may not be reconcilable, or they might be, or they might not be at once. You can reconcile the different universes and their states. You can, you cannot, and you also somewhat can, and somewhat cannot, and you also can, and you also cannot. That's profound like that. But on the mental health side, I think that we according to Taj Street Bay, we exchange fiat as currency. It's value. So what we call money, is fiat in that it's arbitrary. This bill is one, five, $10, $100, but it's the same paper more or less, other than the demarcations and the sophisticated protections on the paper. According to Tashi Bay, it's private commercial paper. That money you have in your pocket, it's not yours. It's yours to use, but it's not yours. That's why you cannot deface money even if it's yours. You earn this $5 bill, but if you deface it on purpose and that's discovered or provable, you can be incarcerated for that because it had not been your paper. But that's actually, it still has value as currency, but it's not true money. That would be precious metals, gold, copper, and silver, according to Tawtrik Bay, and some of the profound realities of that in terms of exchanging value and preserving value, and also electric induction. That also gives the word currency, and money as in moon money. For all that's from Tawtrik Bay. But the reason I was saying that is because but as so they call that Hegelian dialectics, that have the different ideas, juxtapose them, reach understanding like that. Also, if you look up the word intelligence, there's different forms of intelligence. You have emotional intelligence, spatial intelligence. I remember I had a family member that was a little bit mean spirited. Like, I was one time at a family reunion or family gathering around Thanksgiving, and I was saying something about MIT because I've been a lifelong learner, and I attended Berklee College of Music, the online program, which is not, it doesn't, it take, I had attended a real it's so interesting, we're in the digital age, but people yet mock online education. But I had to go to actual, if you like buildings for the sake of buildings and teachers, and like spending a couple minutes in a class to say you were there and do most of the homework away from the class, the learning away from the class, like the same way you would online. Yes, I was in an actual brick and mortar building in the University of North Dakota before I got, and how I got to that online school. But I would visit that online school in Boston, and where I'm in the Minnesota, where I'm from, has a rich history of education, but not as old or necessarily deeper than the East Coast, like not the least of which Boston. Also, Boston that's a religious area because the East Coast was, obviously you had the colonists that came here first, the colonizers, and they were religious people. They were puritanical, and the country itself has always been religious, and much more so as from the current date. If you go back from today's date by decades, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100, 110, 120, the country gets more and more religious, and it gets more and more religious as Christianity goes. So those old schools like Harvard, like a lot of people would say, like even to the current day, oh, you're going for science? Where are you going for science for? Harvard? You're going to science for Harvard? But also, those older schools like Harvard, they were parochial schools, that is religious schools. And a lot of the excellent schools is like, my mom had some excellent education as late as she graduated in the late 60s. She went to private parochial schools, Catholic schools. But even those older schools, they were religious. There's a YouTuber from Canada, an Asian man from Canada, and a lot of people in Canada are very versed on world history, and they know more sometimes about American history than American people can. That's been my take on Canadian people. But he broke that down, is that a lot of those the actual term Ivy League schools that now have the names that they do, that still hold weight, they were religious schools in the first place. But I have been visiting Boston, where you got Harvard, MIT, I think the University of Boston, Berklee College of Music, and I said that in front of my uncle. And when I said MIT, he's like, MICKEYMOUSE, very, very kind of nasty like that. Then one time I was losing my grandma, and his grandson was there. And I know he wasn't there, but they were talking about him. They're like, yeah, man, we were taking him hunting, and he can do this and that, and he can also do this and that. And I said, oh, it sounds like he has a good, it sounds like he has outstanding spatial intelligence. He's like, yeah, but we're also teaching him to be humble. But that's one of the tiers and the demarcations and salient points of intelligence is spatial intelligence, emotional intelligence, reasoning. But then through those, what make those entirely viable, the greater part of those, what actually unifies intelligence, I think, is abstract intelligence. That's what said. If you look up intelligence, one of them, the one that is most impressive to me, is abstract intelligence. But what abstract intelligence is 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 to make connections. That's also even in things that are less abstract, like the sciences, like the STEM fields. The way that people came to those insights that people are still banking on and leverage are studying, getting degrees conferred from, and then and using for applications had been brilliant ideas that began as abstract. Because here go Newton, he get hit upside the head with an apple. He has an idea, as the story goes. That's an actually abstract thought. What the hell does an apple have to do with a theorem that's going to change the world, and just a random apple like that? Not that it doesn't, because anything can be connected to anything. That's the brilliance of a man like that and of this reality. But that's actually abstract thought. The most strict, sensibly strict and exact of sciences, physics slash chemistry, the actual principles and properties, the insight and inspiration, but also the actual the theories. A lot of them are from abstract thought, in that making connections between things that are different, or just allowing things to exist differently where there can be no connection that can be found, and to abide within that. Because we're supposed to always be hyper that science is never done, and is always open to be debunked and out and reconsidered. But for us human beings that have sometimes scientific and or quasi-scientific, that is professional opinions, according to Dr. Umar Johnson, is the insight about professional opinion versus scientifically verified mental health diagnosis. We can't normally argue or prove or get a second opinion, or just not accept an actual opinion by somebody that paid money to form that opinion, and with the intention of being compensated for overlaying that upon human beings, and then going on to overlay that upon human beings that wouldn't know better, or would be caught in their, or like it or not, would be in their scope. But the reason I say that is because I think that people get in a lot of trouble for abstract thought, although it's brilliant. But also, what would constitute a discrepancy in mental health would be similar to Hegelian dialectics. Would be that we exist within fiat. The fiat, according to Tashik Bey, is not only the currency, but it's also our education and our notions. A lot of our notions, like such as linear time, linear age. I was talking to an actual doctor on my recent travels, and I was explaining to him that someone, and I wanted to address this too. Someone on yesterday's video asked me if I was a dad, and I have a lot of experience around children because I'm a school bus driver, and I've been around children in my life, and I also was a camp counselor in high school, like between 11th and 12th grade, and no, sorry, between 10th and 11th and 11th and 12th grade, I was a camp counselor where a lot of the beginning of my adult propensities, appetites, understanding, influence, reasoning, and things like that had already developed. That would be a lot different than a child. So that's a similar role. I would take children on field trips in the Twin Cities on foot, away from a church and stuff like that. That's actually the same scope of liability and responsibility near about as a school bus driver, although it may not be appreciated like that. It could have been probably mitigated differently had I failed than if I failed as an adult driver. But it is still it was a lot of responsibility, and I was compensated well for that as a child, as a late child like that. But the what I meant to say is that that fiat, that these false notions that we have of ourselves and others, the most damning of which being judgment. I don't think that any human being, according to Arthur Avalon, if you can appreciate cause and effect, the true play of cause and effect, you're constituted as enlightened at that point. But I don't think that any of us that if you could understand the true implication and import of cause and effect, you would be humbled by that. Because enlightenment is actually humbling. You feel very humbled when you're enlightened. That is happy. To be happy is to be humble. To be enlightened is to be happy and humble. But the happiness and the humble as a byproduct of being happy. But that well, so when I was talking to I was talking to this doctor, and I was talking about one thing that I appreciate about rearing children is that, at least as a professional and as a member of the community, is that you have different growth spurts in children, like that are blatant and obvious, that can occur like in a short amount of time, like in a summer or even within a semester. I didn't appreciate a lot as a driver within a semester, But I would imagine that in my life as a young person, okay, so we're all playing basketball, da 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 da. All of a sudden, one day, this dude over here can dunk the damn basketball like that in eighth grade like that. That's a jump like that. So according to Osho, life takes off in jumps like that. But we're handed aging as though it's a straight line, like they gives you at the DMV like that. But if you think about it, in that doctor himself, he said, you're never scot free in this life because anybody can keel over and die at any age. That he sees that in the hospitals, people just die for no reason at any age. They can look like anything, and there they are, boom. So you got this person that's on the last day of their life and don't know it at 33, and you got another person that shall live to be 70 years old and be able to outperform people much his junior at 70 years old. But when they're both 33 like that, you can't appreciate the difference in them verbatim according to their age as it's given. They're both 33. So you're 33. That means that you're old enough to know better, but you also don't belong in an adult nightclub that for 21 and up. So I'm just saying that can be arbitrary as a straight line, but cycles are not arbitrary. So I think we exist more in cycles, cycles, within a day, within a week, within a month, within a year, within multiples of years. Some people say 7 is very significant for cycles, but an example of that is that I was telling him how I reason that is that the cycles are imminent, and they to interfere with those cycles is damning for oneself, for anyone that be interfered with or interfering with them or not respecting within themselves where they're at within a cycle. That's damning like that. But as the cycle goes, imagine you have a family get together, two different families they're bringing their family, their children together. You have one who's like I was at camp counselor in between 10th and 11th grade. You have one child that's say 10th grade, then you have another child that's 5th grade. They're vastly different. If like say if they were boys, there's no content. I was talking to a former boxer when I was in Duluth last year, and I was talking to he had this like really deep voice, and his cool voice. You could tell how much fighting he'd done by his voice, and he was asking me if I'd ever been in a fight, and I was like, well, yeah. I always had friends that were older than me my whole life because my mind was such that older children always took an interest in me, and but I had one friend who was like a year older than me, and then his brother was like 3 years older than me, 3 grade years, and then he had an older brother that I wasn't friends with, but their older brother was part of. They were like you had like a lot of like people. A lot of people would try to act like they're from the street in the '90s, but also people were street, so you didn't know who was and wasn't really street. But their older brother would have been hanging out on the block like that, so to speak. But then they weren't far away from that, seeing that. But then they were very formidable. But his brother was like 3 grades older than me, and I was telling him about one time. I would say even to this point, I don't remember a time in my whole life. I sorry, I take that back. Most of my life, I never picked a fight, but there was one child who I was mean spirited at least twice in my life, with children that were my age, but they weren't at my same level, like with riding bikes or socializing, and that was wrong, and I humble myself for that, and I'd like to ask for forgiveness for that because that's painful, and sometimes people can still remember that. And one of them was he was still my homie, and he would put me on these cool like I'd give him lists of music, and he'd give me like these cool CDs like with all my favorite songs on there, and then like whatever video game I was interested in, he'd give me the cheat codes to that. He was a cold ass dude like that. My homie Brandon. Um, but he had something, the same thing my cousin had, where he didn't hit puberty just right. So he actually was like something of a, he was like the mind of a high schooler, but his body was like the maturation of like a older boy, not quite like puberty. But besides that, I wouldn't be one to start a fight. But my homie that was 1 year older than me, one time we were fighting about something dumb, and I just did this random back house kick on him because I'd been practicing him on my mom's bed, and then his brother took up for him, and he was like walking me down like about to hand my ass to me, and I told my this older homie that that's the only time I ever got defeated just because I ran away from him, but he was like, well, that what he didn't defeat you, that was just physics, man. 3 years difference as a kid, that's just physics, man. But similarly, like if you had a child that was in 10th grade and one that's in 5th grade, physically they're completely different stature, degree of a human being. However, they may have something that the younger child is interested in, like a singer or like a card game or like a toy, or maybe nowadays like a platform that the older 10th grader you can see the younger child bring out the child the lesser degree of a child in the older child, and that they can still find reciprocity and a common ground over that whatever they're bonding over differently than a full-fledged adult could or a very small child was, because they're at different cycles, but some of those cycles they still overlap and reach back and reach forward a little bit. Is that some of the sophistication of how I think we are? Because nothing can move in a straight line. For example, if you one of the reasons I don't know if I should say this, man. This is just in the interest of truth. A lot of the reasons that people can't hit something with a gun is because if you point a gun something straight at something, if it's very far away, what you don't know, what someone untrained doesn't know, is that a bullet follows an arch because it's still within abiding within gravity. So if I have a rifle right here, right now my arm is about 3 feet above the ground. If that has like some kind of smooth if it ejects the casing in a smooth way where it doesn't propel if it doesn't propel, say it just hatches the shell, right? Like instead of spit it just hatches it instantly, just with no extra force. It just hatches it like that. By the time that case, if I fire that, it could be a high powered rifle that can shoot 2 miles. If you fire that rifle at parallel with the ground, which also is arbitrary because you can never be entirely parallel with the ground because nothing is straight. But by the time that casing reaches the ground, so too will that round reach the ground, however far it goes, because that round, however much forward emphasis it does, that doesn't negate if it has a I'm not sure. So I think lateral. So if it's going parallel to the ground, you have like different degrees of gravity that are different forces acting upon it. However much it's propelled straight, the actual the as it's going at a parallel to the ground, the gravity that's pulling it towards the ground isn't negated by that. So the actual bullet will reach the ground in as much time as it takes the casing to reach the ground. That's so in order to hit something, you'd have to actually raise the barrel ever so much so that it follows an arc, and that's why a lot of people couldn't hit something. I lost that train of thought a little bit. But that's to say is that nothing is just straight. That's why you can't hit something with the gun straight, because even though you got a straight barrel, a long barrel, straight barrel rifle, which is deadly, it actually still, even if you had the most sophisticated long straight barrel rifle, it still actually can't shoot straight because nothing can move in a straight line. So too, I don't think that we develop in a straight line like that. We're more so cyclical, but those cycles are profound and brilliant and what life are, and they spell life and death opportunities for everyone and life and death consequences, and aren't to be trifled with. Um, but I one more thing I wanted to say with this, and I'll land this here. So my greatest insight about so we have so it's not wrong to have Hegelian dialectics as truth goes, to have two things that are true and maybe reconcilable with like abstract thought to creativity and insight, or not. They just are not reconcilable to us. They may be reconcilable in a greater sense, but as human beings, we anthropomorphize. We put our notions of being a human onto other things, other creatures. Like we talk to animals like people. Sometimes we give animals too much of esteem. I think we do that. If you can imagine, it's not appropriate to give a child too much respect, the same respect as an adult, because that confounds the actual the authority and what the needs of the child are. But and also probably our needs as an adult too, because if they don't respect us, it's our need as adults to be respected by men, women, and children. So if we're too familiar with children, that's not healthy for us also. But sometimes people will treat animals like humans and give them a lot of stature, like a lot of stature. Like if you've ever been to if you've ever been to a shelter, there's always dogs at shelters, and sometimes those dogs get to tripping. Like if two people are fighting, adults, and they get nasty, they're going to be out somewhere. But those dogs can get to killing each other. They get serious, and it's like, hey man, chill, it's okay, baby, it's okay, baby, and nothing more said of that. That dog has a pattern of tripping every single day like that. Somebody or another creature could get hurt like that, really could get hurt, but people do nothing about that because they damn near give a dog sometimes more stature than a human being. And if that dog, people are ready to bend over and pick up anything for a dog. I'll just say that, and that's not wrong, because it's probably better that than people be nasty to dogs, because that's yet another degree of being heinous. But it's just that we sometimes don't give we don't give equity and status and stature and duties and penalties to all people and creatures, and that arbitrariness is also part of our food. So where that comes from though is that we're looking at the dog and we're treating the dog as yet another human being, which is not what it is. But also we look at physics like a human being would look at physics, or we look at if we try to profound divinity or sublime things or astronomy, astrology, things like this. We put now astrology is a little bit more personal because that astrology is almost like that could be that astrology and even divinity sometimes can be ascribing human propensities and personalities to things that are to forces and realities that are broader and more enduring than and more wasteless than a human being would be. Because human beings, we waste time, we waste effort, we waste we're not organized. But nature and reality, even animals, are less of that, nothing of that. But that's just an example that that notion, that ability to anthropomorphize things, forces, dynamics, but then also concepts as it's actually false and falsifiable, and then rock with it like it's verifiable. That's an ambivalence, but that's also fiat, and that's what our reality is. Our education, what we do, how we interface, how we think. And so, if you have two different ideas and there's actually fiat in between them, an actual real falsehood in something about that, something arbitrary, you feel like this kind of person because you've been treated like this, but that's also the way people were looking at you, which is not what you had been at any point. In fact, that some of that could be cognitive dissonance. That's to hold different ideas or an idea that's not congruent in the truest sense, and then that there could be suffering from that anxiety, depression, psychosis, and conflict in personality, and some of that has to do with how we've been treated, looked at, and approached. But the main damning part of all that would be judgment, because anything can be overcome, even falsehood, even ignorance can be overcome. But judgment is to is condemning, is condemning at essence, but also it's ignorant. So it's ignorant and condemning. That's like tyranny, but it's also damning. And so what I was saying in that video is that I think that the most we'll ever come towards true health for ourselves and our body and our mind is actually understanding and landing upon and interfacing through our authentic voice in this life, each one of us, and being heard for that and being engaged for that, for what our voice is. And that doesn't have to do with speaking in itself or singing in itself or action in itself, but it's all of that or any degree of that. So someone who cannot speak, cannot hear, cannot see, has as much of a voice as anyone and as much of a purpose too. And whatever they would do and do well and enjoy doing and excel at doing or just want to do, that's someone's voice. And I think that's the closest we get to transcending like mental health and stuff like that. And that can be maybe getting there could be remedied with the support of what would be called RX or drug, for lack of a better word, which are bastardization, a lot of times an amalgamation, appropriation of other locally endemic entheogens, which would be more helpful. That too would be more helpful if curated and supplied by someone that has a local understanding and observant lifestyle and respect for those things. But that too, medicine in itself is not a cure and a solution in itself, and it can be a detriment as much as anything that can help can hurt. So if it's, I was making an example in another video that I didn't upload. If you have a whole bunch of boys running a medicine ball in basketball, that's or in sports, that's like where you run laps together. But whoever's at the front of the line, they carry the medicine ball, and then whoever's in the back has to double time to get to the front and hold the medicine ball, and then for a lap, and then pass it off. Or like sometimes in the military, they'll do like if people are running at a base where there's intersections, or like maybe I don't know if they did it in public, but in a base with intersections, the whole platoon is running at a unit, which is another degree of difficulty to sustain a collective cadence with people and pace. Then you're in this pace, which is already daunting, but somebody's a traffic guard, which means when there's so you're all running, you're all getting taxed like that in the hot sun, Southern California, wherever you might be, 21, whatever, any country, whatever. Then when there's an intersection coming up, somebody has to double time to the intersection, hold guard at the intersection. Then when the whole platoon is gone, they got to double time back to the platoon until there's another intersection. They got to do it again. But so as a medicine drill, you couldn't sustain just holding that medicine ball the whole time. That medicine drill is very good for people, for teams. But you couldn't run the whole time with that medicine ball. It'll damn near kill someone, heaven forbid, in basketball practice. But so too, medicine is like that. Is that medicine is real business, heavy business, it's serious medicine. but you don't want to play with it, but you also don't want to overdo it. So when it's timely, when it's beneficial, when it aligns with what your needs are to a point, it can be just what's needed, no more, no less, if it's done well. But this thing about making banking with it, profiting with it, and forcing it upon people as they need it and don't need it, past what they need and don't need arbitrarily, um, that can be that can defeat the purpose. But so the better way I think to get to clarity of sight, which is which can inform and constitute clarity of mind, and also when acted upon and lived up to, when you see yourself for what you are, you see what your real talent and real potential is. When you act on that, you have confidence and experience now, and that thereby a voice, and that is also a vocation, and that's what that's likely what you may enjoy in life, and what you can help others with, which is a part of being enjoy. It's not just one thing. It's one thing to enjoy something, enjoy doing something, and it's yet another aspect to enjoy being enjoyed for doing that. And it's part of what is one of our needs. I think like they have like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but as soon as you say hierarchy, to me that smacks of entitlement and chauvinism and a human perspective. Because even us as humans, we're also a transcendent of human. And so sometimes like some of the things I've been through are less than humane, and some of the things that people can do are more than humane. Um, we can actually go beyond what it is to be human. For example, like I had this video where I was doing some like I was showing some of my progress, and then someone said K fail, like what's this bullshit? But that's actually what that's what a master would say if an artist presented a work. Hey, this is the best thing I've ever done before. This is the most fit. This is the greatest physique I've ever accomplished before. What do you think, YouTube? What do you think? Because YouTube could be populated by anyone. Anyone that you think anything of could populate YouTube. That's cool, but that's also challenging. Hey man, what do you think about this thing I did? I think that's about some bullshit. That's actually what you would tell a great student, because they have to keep coming back and back. And the point when an artist, according to Osho, the point when an artwork has become has matured and ripened is when the artist, not the picture, the artist has become what they're drawing, and now the picture looks like it's drawn by somebody. So when the picture of a dead fish looks like it had been drawn by somebody that made a dead fish out of themselves trying to draw a dead fish and please a master, now we're getting somewhere. And so but I just think that with the Maslow hierarchy, this and that, one thing that's glossed over than that, and that may not be appreciated in that, and may have been overlooked by him himself, is that we're social, so we appreciate being appreciated. We enjoy doing things that are enjoyed by others, and that's one of the sacrifices of an artist. Because sometimes, like you see a beautiful painting on a wall, you're like, dang man, that artist would have had to go through a lot to make that painting. That artist might not even be with us anymore. That artist might not have even been compensated or looked at any cool way. We don't even know who that artist is, yet they still did it. That it maybe one be enjoyed by someone. That's spiritual at that point. They sacrificed themselves to say something. So if they're having a voice, which counted in their life and hereafter, and they're being enjoyed, which counted in their life spiritually and now presently. Um, but I just want to say, landing at our voice is the transcendence and the outcome, I think, and the constitution of health. Also, like I've been doing more of singing, and this book I read about singing by Richard Alderson, a great book. He said that um, singing is actually an athletic event. So you sing with your whole body, and to sing well, you have to maintain your body well, because anything your body is going through, your mind is going through, it comes out in your performance as a singer. But so too in life, anything you're about, it comes out as, and it constitutes your voice. And some of your satisfaction with yourself and with your life and with life itself and with others themselves is in the congruence of your own voice and what it takes to have a voice. And that doesn't have to do with anything audible in itself necessarily, although it can, and to no degree, to no limit of a degree, is how consequential your audible voice and or your non-audible and or any combination that will constitute your vocation in this life. And it doesn't have to be professionally compensated. I was talking to a doctor, and he was telling me the real plight of doctors. It's actually kind of incredible how much he had to go through to become a doctor, and then what people go through once they've already become doctors, but they still have to prove themselves before they get compensated. But he said that his uncle thought that doctors and teachers shouldn't be compensated. But I think he may have actually misquoted his uncle, because he said his uncle was a philanthropist, and does great things. But I imagine that what he may have been reaching for, a good stand of reason, is that there's a difference between compensation and remuneration. So if I'm an artist and I'm busking, if people bless me as they can afford, as they're inspired, but I don't make a demand or even a request, that's remuneration. So I'm being blessed for what I'm doing, which took work, ethic, sacrifice, and investment, but there's no demand or obligation. If it's compensation, then there's more of a demand and obligation. So if somebody has a job that compromises their health, right? They have a job in the trades that destroy their back, but that job, it afforded them an insurance bounty and or a personal savings that you're healing their back, but you're demanding or you're entitled to that monetary value that they had, that financial value that they had, based on that same thing that hurt them, so that you can be equitable with them. Is that not a conflict of interest? But even if they had something that paid them not well and they got injured for something different, can you really heal somebody with the juxtaposition? Because the doctor was telling me, hey, I went to this much school, I went through this much hell, so my attention, my is worthwhile. What I'm giving them took a lot that they're getting in a few minutes. But he actually wasn't wrong, because he said that's where the government, and probably they say that you have the public sector of business and the private sector. Ostensibly, the private sector is this money made getting stuff, and it's nothing about favors, and it's all self-made if it's private, right? But they also mess up. They also cost the environment. They also cost human beings in their body through their labor. So the private sector is also compensated with subsidies the same way as the public sector is, even if it's just the subsidy of the value of the human bodies, which are part of the public sector. So like some people also in America, they would say that, oh, we're all about capitalism, or that I had this very savvy person who I was serving as a PCA, who said, oh, see, we're in a mixed economy, so we have a combination of capitalism and socialism, even like you. So your job is paid for by the state, which is more so of a social structure, but also it's giving you back money that's hard money, and you can spend it to invest in, like, in capitalism, and play that game if you want to. And so it's actually a mixed thing like that, and that's actually what also business is in the private and public sector. But what this person was saying is that the actual a better way to say, should medicine be supported by the government or by business or by people, is just that it should be better organized and more humane. And he was saying that other countries do a better. Case in point, England and Canada. And also, according to Tashik Bey, Canada is not actually a sovereign nation. It's a subsidiary, like a suzerain state of England, and which is why it doesn't have states; it has provinces, and that may actually speak to why there's a semblance of the viability and the excelling of both Canada and England in terms of healthcare organization, and probably other metrics that would benefit their people, to commend them for that. It's just that things have to be better organized. But how do you organize anything? The values at play. So the values may be wrong in medicine. Medicine's not wrong. Doctors being remunerated is not wrong. Doctors being entitled to compensation could be wrong. Insurance and or hospitals obligating patients votives, medical votives who have faith in them, because it also takes faith to present yourself for services, that to put those duties on the person who's already been injured and maimed by their lifestyles or some of the deprivations in their lifestyles that would attend their way of making money. To put that onto them, it may not be humane and also equitable, which is where the problem may go. So the one thing I want to say, and I'll land this one here. I have more content, but I'll say that for another one. Is that how do we change the world? How do we change things that are wrong? Are these different bohemians also our way of exchanging value and things like that do a lot of damning and stuff like that? The history of oppression, the history of taking advantage of people financially, all these things. How would we address any of that? Also, the future, the way we're messing up now, the way that we're likely messing up for future generations. How would we address any of that? I think it's just to be more humane and equitable as it occurs to us, and that would constitute a greater degree of personal character. And the way that you would express your character in a humane, equitable, and beneficial way towards yourself and others would be to land upon and discover your voice, that is your vocation, that is your purpose, why your ass is here, and what your ass gets to enjoy, and it is better for enjoying to be here. to do. But so I'm saying that it starts and stops with character. All things do, and that's a degree of that's within values. And there's no greater value than precious human life and doing right by one another. So I'll sign off.